Hello, this is Nicko with Food Cravings, and today we're making schoolyard pizza. I'm going to show you my take on what some of you may remember as one of the most classic elementary school dishes. That pizza with the cheddar on it? Yeah, that's the one. We're going to start with some lukewarm water, to which we're going to add some dry active yeast. To that we're going to add some sugar, and we're going to give it a stir with our mini whisk. While doing this, it's important to remember to dissolve the yeast entirely. Then we'll cover and set aside. We'll also need 2 eggs and our mixer with dough hook attachment. We're gonna need some flour. Here I'm using a blend of bread flour and all-purpose. Once we know our yeast is active, we'll add that to the bowl along with some water. To that we'll add our beaten eggs. And here I decided to give it a quick tappy tap. And we'll also add some sugar and some salt, but we won't add our oil yet, and I'll let you know why on the blog. Now we're gonna add in our flour, only half of it though, and give that a mix. And give it time so that it become incorporated. And just moments later, it can be seen here that everything is starting to come together. Here we determined that we need to add the rest of the flour. Better to add what you can't take away, so we'll add the rest of the flour now because our dough is too sticky. And give it another whirl. Here it's starting to form up together and come off the dough hook easily. Now we're going to scrape the sides of the bowl to make sure we got everything off and give it another mix. As that's going, you can see everything coming together. Now we're going to stop, make a little well, and add in some olive oil. The dough will still be soft enough, but it won't stick. And what this will do is it'll make the dough easier to work with. Pro tip here, adding the olive oil will make the dough more supple. And now it'll fall off, start coming apart, falling off the dough hook gently. For pizza, it's better to use olive oil. The dough is going all around and it's not sticking. Finally, it stopped. Next, we'll roll that into a ball and begin kneading. And while you're kneading, you'll feel what I felt, a supple, fluffy, soft dough that doesn't stick. Here I continued kneading and kneading. Shortly thereafter I was able to notice it's kind of sticky, but it didn't really stick to my hands. Then I formed it into a shape of a ball again, and it was time to let it rest to rise. I covered it. That's gonna rise for 2 hours. Now onto the toppings. I used a combination of sliced portobello mushrooms and button mushrooms. For the button mushrooms, you'll want to take off part of the stem. Next, you'll want to continue slicing. Since I was gonna use pepperoni also, this has to match the size. Once we have our button mushrooms sliced, we're gonna go ahead and put it in our prep bowl. And it's time to saute our mushrooms. Now to our pot, we're going to drizzle in some olive oil to add our mushrooms, and we'll start sauteing. Once we saute everything, the mushrooms will have released their moisture and they won't be soggy anymore. Check it out. Here I continued to stir gently, and while that steams, you could see they're softening up a little bit. We don't want to overcook them. Meanwhile, our dough has doubled. Now you could see it's nice and fluffy. Here I divided it, since I'm making 2 pizzas, by giving it a quick karate chop and a few pokes. Then I used my dough scraper to cut it in half, straight down the middle. Then I rolled each half away from one another, at which point I shaped each of them into balls and began rolling them out. This process is simple. It involves you shaping the dough flat, turning it around, patting it with your hand, then rolling it again. Up, down, left and right until you get the perfect circle and the desired thickness. However, it's important to know that the shape of your pizza depends on how you rolled the dough first, during the time in which you formed them into balls. Here you can see that no matter what happens, as sticky as it may seem, the dough is coming off the workbench rather easily. Here what I was doing is rolling it out flat. Go ahead and have to roll it into a circle again, and this will give more air bubbles, making for a fluffier dough to rise higher during final baking. After this second rise, it's time to reshape our dough into a perfectly round circle. After that's done, we'll go ahead and pop it into our bucket for a second rise. We'll want to make sure that that's doubled in size. Once that's doubled, it's time to dust our workbench with some flour and turn the dough out to begin rolling our pizza. Here we'll place the bottom of our dough ball underneath some flour to prevent sticking, while patting it down, turning it over, doing the same on the other side as well. Then you'll want to pick it up and stretch it with your fingers, just gently though. You don't want to apply too much pressure. With the other hand, you want to go ahead and rotate it a little bit before officially using your rolling pin. Here I was going for approximately 15 inches in diameter, since that's the size of my pizza screen. And using both hands, I patted it down, added some more flour as it was a bit sticky. You have to kind of look at it and gauge it, basically feeling it with your hands. Whenever it's time to use more flour, you add more flour. When it's time to roll it in an up and down motion, you have to gauge it and see. To expand the circle, you also give it a few diagonal rolls up and down as well. When you feel that it's sticking on the bottom of the workbench, you lift a piece of it up, gently of course, and apply flour while rolling it again. Here I'm rolling it in a diagonal, as you can see, a few times in each direction so that it rolls out evenly. You always want to roll out the dough a little bit bigger than your pizza screen or pan. It'll give you more to work with if you fall short on all sides. Next, I oiled the pizza screen a little bit with some olive oil so that I would prevent sticking. This also helps to evenly brown the bottom. Then we'll roll both sides of our dough onto the rolling pin, place the pizza screen underneath, and then come over it with the rolling pin, rolling out the dough onto the pizza screen. That's the easiest way and the most pro-tip way to prevent sticking during this process. Then we'll go ahead and brush the edges with some olive oil so that it can brown evenly. After that, we'll go ahead and also brush a few times back and forth the center of our dough before saucing it up. Then we'll take a few ladles of our sauce. I always go for like a light to light medium sauce consistency. I don't like a lot on my pizza, but it's up to you. If you guys want more, you feel free to sauce more, or less, feel free to go with less. You're the boss. Here I was finally finished saucing it up. I was just spreading around all the rest of it. Then I decided it was time to top it with some cheese and pepperoni. As you can see, this isn't your average pizza. I don't scrimp on toppings, neither should you. So I suggest you equally distribute evenly throughout your pizza dough. Here I was just finishing up adding the mushrooms real quick, when I realized it can use a little bit more cheese. So I continued retopping it with some more cheese and a quick sprinkling of oregano before popping it into the oven. And I set mine at the highest setting on broil. And I rotated the pizza halfway during the cooking process to make sure it evenly browns on all sides. Once I was satisfied with the level of doneness on my pizza, I decided it was now officially done. So I started cutting it up into eighths until I was satisfied with the number of slices I had. And I decided to make 2 of them, so I proceeded to cut the second pizza up as well. Oh my god, and here's that cheese pull. Wow, that's Chef Nicko style. And of course, how could I resist but to go in for a taste? I nearly abandoned a couple of mushrooms in the process. If you're as nostalgic as I am, you'll love this adult, grown-up version of schoolyard pizza. It'll take you back to the elementary school days, that's for sure. I hope you've enjoyed this recipe for schoolyard pizza. For more info and ingredient amounts, please visit www.chefnicko.blogspot.com. And before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much, bon appetit, and enjoy. See you soon.